What's up, noobs? It's not very often that we see a Proptech company IPO. Most publicly traded companies are REITs and management companies, but a number of Proptech companies have recently been growing so big that you can't ignore them. AirBnb is one of the most anticipated IPOs of 2020, debuting on the Nasdaq sometime later this month under the ticker ABNB. But I'm not excited because it's a strong brand that's going public. That's a new reason to be investing in an IPO. I'm excited because of what Airbnb can do to the real estate industry with all that money. I remember going to a hotel conference back in 2015, where nobody in the hotel industry was willing to admit that Airbnb was siphoning their customers. By 2016, they acknowledged their occupancy rates were lower and that Airbnb's phantom inventory was skewing their numbers. The year after that, every talk mentioned Airbnb, and datasets included both hotel inventory and home sharing inventory. By 2019, 12 years after Airbnb launched, Marriott officially recognized them as a competitor by launching their own home sharing brand. Aside from swinging a wrecking ball through the hotel industry, Airbnb made residential investors consider a totally new metric: utilization. If you've got a 1-year tenant in your rental, you don't care whether they're there or not. It's 100% occupied and you're collecting rent the whole time. But if you can help your tenant make a little income when they're not around and take a cut for yourself, you've increased utilization and your property generates more cash flow. It's technically greater than 100% occupancy, but by tracking utilization, you're striving to get heads in beds every day of the year. Airbnb has already partnered with a number of real estate developers to create branded, flexible living apartments. Airbnb's IPO isn't going to be like most real estate stocks, where you buy a company backed by real estate assets with very predictable cash flows and growth. This is a Proptech company with software-like margins that's already upended the hotel industry and the housing industry, and they're aiming for more. So I'm not going to talk about the S1 filing's financial details because there's plenty of videos out there about their historical financials and whether the IPO valuation of 30 to 35 billion is really worth it. That thinking is too short term. No matter how much you scrutinize their filings, there will be a disconnect between its supposed valuation and the stock price right after its IPO. As Benjamin Graham put it in his seminal work, The Intelligent Investor, in the short run, the market is like a voting machine, tallying up which firms are popular and unpopular. But in the long run, the market is like a weighing machine, assessing the substance of a company. I'm sure Airbnb is going to get a ton of votes, so the whole financial statement analysis and valuation exercise is almost moot. This video isn't about recommending whether to buy or not, or what price would be a good entry point. This is about how they're going to use a sudden injection of $3 billion in fresh capital, and how it's going to put a dent in the real estate industry. Of course they're going to use a lot of the IPO funds on growing their core business, and the S1 filing outlines where the strategic focus lies: growing the hosting community and deepening market penetration around the globe. While their core business has been exciting, it's the last point in their long-term growth strategy in the S1 that gets me excited. It says, "We will design new opportunities for connection. As the world continues to change, we will continue to bring together new technologies with our design expertise to expand possibilities for our hosts and offer new experiences for our guests." On its own, it doesn't mean much till you start digging into a subsidiary that they launched quietly in 2016, Samara. Co-founder Joe Gebbia wasn't satisfied with the disruption that Airbnb has already caused, so he set up a separate team to work on moonshots to make sure that they don't become complacent. It's a bit tough to understand what they're going for by poking around the site, but here's some of their marketing copy. Samara is an experimental product development team at Airbnb. Airbnb proves that open-mindedness, generosity, and faith in the kindness of strangers can go a long way. Samara is a space for these values to evolve beyond travel and hospitality and into our daily lives. The journey is long. I love the last line because they're focused on long-term changes in the real estate industry. Further investigation shows that Samara's first project was in a small Japanese town called Yoshino. They invested in building a community center dubbed the Yoshino Cedar House as a gathering place for locals to host Airbnb guests for tourism activities. The result was $75,000 in bookings in the area, which may not sound like much, but to a small town with an aging population, it injects outside capital into the local economy. This is still an ongoing research project in how Airbnb can revitalize smaller economies. But Samara announced a new initiative 2 years ago called Backyard, and Joe Gebbia confirmed that they are exploring how Airbnb can get into architecture and urban planning. They're researching manufacturing techniques, modular construction, smart home tech, and gathering data from their hosting and guest communities to build homes. My guess is that they want to start off by using new technology to design and build homes in communities that are naturally conducive to flexible living and home sharing, because that'll bolster their core business. But I'm sure they'll further pursue any promising research that they stumble upon so that it can grow into its own business as big as Airbnb itself. This most likely means that they'll expand beyond being a software company and start dealing with the bricks and sticks. If you've been watching any of my Proptech videos, Airbnb is investing in a lot of the technology that I've been talking about, and they're looking to become a force behind innovation in real estate. And if you haven't been watching, hit those like and subscribe buttons because we're constantly sharing our research in Proptech for our own real estate developments. And for today's Womb, of course I'm going to recommend the Airbnb story by Lee Gallagher. It was released in February of 2017, so it's ancient history by now. But it does tell the fascinating story of how two non-technical founders, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, came up with the idea and teamed up with their CTO, Nathan Blecharczyk. One of the stories that's become a Silicon Valley legend is how they leveraged their design backgrounds and raised $30,000 making and selling Captain McCain and Obama O's cereal for one of their first biggest hosting conventions, the Democratic National Convention. There's plenty about how they grew and maintained their company culture, but go check it out for yourself. Stay curious, noobs.